Poverty is a problem that plagues every member of the human race. If rich or poor, this is a universal problem that stems from significant actions in people's lives. The common perception of poverty largely differs from the reality. Most people that have a stable financial situation believe that poverty is simply caused by a lack of knowledge of personal finances, money, and low-paying jobs. But through research of this problem, the perception of poverty in the eyes of experts has dramatically changed. Despite 5 years of economic recovery, poverty is still abnormally high in America. More than 45 million people, or 14.5% of all Americans, lived below the poverty line during 2014. Poverty cannot be traced to a single source or root, but by identifying the most prominent causes, we can aid those affected and make progress towards solving the poverty crisis. Let's start with the youngest people living in poverty, and these are children. In the US, children make up 45% of chronic poverty. Child poverty is especially serious, as these kids are still growing up and low quality health couldn't be more prevalent and act as a barrier to these children's future. The health risk for poor children range from inadequate nutrition to higher incidence of chronic disease, which all impact their school readiness and opportunities to learn. Additionally, several studies have linked child poverty to toxic stress, which can harm brain development, IQ scores, and all in all reduce academic achievement. Additionally, poverty at a young age has also been found to lead to long-term health problems such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and depression. For children, the real only ticket to get out of poverty by themselves is through a good education, as a quality education can open up more opportunities for better jobs and higher wages. Yet, receiving good education is not easy in low-income neighborhoods and communities, as most schools surrounding these communities tend to be underfunded, with old educational materials and a lack of textbooks, etc. Thus, poor children are twice as likely to repeat a grade during elementary school, and often then drop out from high school. To summarize, for children living in persistent poverty, attendance tends to be spotty and inconsistent, as frequent housing mobility disrupts the children's education and learning cycle. All in all, child poverty in the US alone leads to an estimated loss of $500 billion per year, when you add up expenses like lost productivity, crime, and poor health, which, according to the Urban Institute, is substantially higher than the estimated $77 billion per year it would take to lift 60% of children out of poverty. This means we can fix child poverty. We already have all the resources and tools we need. Many experts believe that a great education is a true equalizer in child poverty. And let's just start with that by donating to under-resourced schools. Donating a little money or simply a picture book for younger children at your school or organization nearby will benefit educational programs, and every cent is essential to drive such institutions forward. To conclude, you need to invest in your future, and these children are our future. These are the kids once leading the country and representing the United States of America.
A large portion of the impoverished in America are families ran by single parents, particularly mothers. For the first time in history, children are more likely to reside in a single-parent family for reasons other than the death of a parent. Nearly half of the children of a household ran by single mothers are living in poverty, compared to the 11% of children who live with married parents. 40% of all births in the U.S. are to single, unwed mothers. The average annual income for single mothers is 1/4 that of a family ran by two parents. Also, the gap in poverty rates between different races, ethnicities, and genders is astounding. Single African American and Hispanic parents are twice as likely to be poor when compared to non-Hispanic, white, and Asian parents. Also, single mothers are twice as likely to be poor than single fathers. Impoverished families are victims of racial profiling and gender profiling, and they can't do anything about it. It is society's responsibility to aid the poor with getting back on their feet, and while many have already devoted their time to the cause, more is needed as the problem still exists. One of the ways the poor can be helped is by giving them a permanent household to live in. Many of the impoverished struggle with finding a home, and homeless hotels are often ineffective at solving the poverty issue. Making permanent homes for the impoverished and homeless is easier and more cost-effective. It costs roughly $8,000 to move a chronically homeless person into permanent housing in Utah, compared with the $20,000 for a year of temporary shelter. The cost of a permanent housing is far lower than the temporary shelter, and the housing doesn't require any oversight by staff. Giving single parents a roof to live under will give them the capability and opportunity to save themselves and their families from the poverty epidemic.
Another major contributor to the populations of people affected by poverty are ex-convicts. The United States has the largest prison population in the world, consisting of 7 million people on probation or parole and 2.3 million people in prison. And, quote-unquote, from 1980 to 2000, the number of prisons grew by 300%. With this in mind, imagine what happens when 95% of these people return to our society. The result is disastrous. Most of the time, when a prisoner is released, they are given some clothes and enough money to get a bus ride. Nowhere to go, distanced from family and friends over the years of desolation they have suffered. Most ex-convicts turn right back to what landed them in prison, and most likely they'll end back there. In fact, data shows that by the end of the 5-year follow-up period, approximately 3/4, or 76.6%, of prisoners released in 2005 were rearrested. So the solution? Well, there is no single way to solve a problem that has been allowed to grow in our society unhindered for so long. But the most effective strategy to fight poverty and ex-convicts are programs that help them prepare themselves to re-enter society. These programs range from job training to anger management. Even the practice of talking with others is helpful for the first interactions out of prison. If we can implement these programs and get convicts to use them to their advantage, society as a whole will benefit. Economists estimated that because people with felony records and formerly incarcerated have poor prospects in the labor market, the nation's gross domestic product in 2014 was reduced by $78 to $87 billion. Helping ex-convicts is a win-win situation. They can regain a stable life and our society benefits because they boost our economy and can become valuable assets to communities nationwide.
There are 643,067 homeless people in America, and a large portion of these people are the troops that fight for our country. Veterans make up about 12% of the homeless population, which is a huge issue. A major contributor to homelessness in veterans is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is where troops come back from the war and have constant anxiety and fear. They also experience flashbacks and have random outbursts. This can be disruptive, which is why employers only hire them as a last resort. We send out our troops to war-ridden places, stealing them from their families and asking them to kill other human beings. Then we just expect them to come back and live regularly in society. We expect so much from them and then give back so little. Agencies that supply unemployment to help veterans coming home cut off these checks after just 26 weeks. 98% of these homeless veterans are single, 91% are male, and 54% have some mental disorder. In this time, it is very hard to afford a house, which is another problem. If a person wants to buy a one-room apartment and they are working at minimum wage 6 days of the week, they need to work about 18 hours a day. This is very unreasonable for anyone to work that much. The amount of homeless veterans and people in general is a huge problem that our society needs to focus on solving.
In order to fight poverty in all of its forms, there has to be a unified drive to push back the dark grip it has not only on the US, but the whole world. The first steps toward reaching this goal would be to spread word of this worldwide issue. Every day, men, women, and even children suffer from poverty. The time for action is now. Efforts must be made in order to make progress in suppressing poverty. There is no excuse for shrugging off the responsibilities that every person in our society has. If you can help in any way, whether that be donating clothes and food or volunteering your time, every minute given and can of food donated helps. Even a small impact helps these human beings that are living meal to meal, day by day. Our society as a whole has a responsibility to the impoverished, and that is to aid them through the struggles of poverty.